Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam bangun langayate girim yat kripatamah vande Sri Gurum Deenatarinam Parama Ananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. Um, how many of you in the earlier sessions have attended the Gita Mahatmya course or the Discover Yourself course? You can raise your hand up. Okay. Yes, Susha Sitaraman Mataji, yes, I can recognize you. Suma Mataji. Okay, so I can see few of the devotees here. Hema Malini Mataji as well. Hare Krishna. Okay, so looks like many of you are seeing me for the first time, I believe. So let me start off with an introduction about myself. Nothing much to say about me. I'm just a insignificant servant of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So my name is Gauranga Prasad Das. I am here in Chennai. I'm stationed in a place called Westmambalam. I have been practicing Krishna consciousness for quite some time now. Taken shelter of Srila Prabhupada and his wonderful disciple, who is my spiritual master. So I have been through this journey mainly because of the wonderful literature called Bhagavad Gita as it is. So Bhagavad Gita has definitely transformed my life. When I look back at my own life, probably a few years back, how I was leading my life without any goal, only for my own sense gratification, revolving around my own family, right? So that was how I was leading my life until the point when I came across Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, which actually transformed my life, I should say. In many of the devotees' life as well, this Bhagavad Gita has brought about lots of transformation. The main aspect being how we look at life in terms of the goal. So that has completely changed after I studied Bhagavad Gita. So in this context, I would like to offer my sincere prayers to Srila Prabhupada. Not sure how many of you are aware of this personality. Srila Prabhupada is the founder Acharya of International Society for Krishna Consciousness called ISKCON. So here I have this book of Bhagavad Gita. I hope you can clearly see Srila Prabhupada's picture here. I'll spotlight for everyone. Hope you can see. Right. So this is Srila Prabhupada. He is the founder Acharya and he is the one who wrote commentaries and translation for this book, wonderful book called Bhagavad Gita as it is. How many of you don't have this book yet? You can raise your hand. Anybody who doesn't have this book? Okay, Lata Murli, Sukanya Sarkar. So you don't have this book. In case, I would strongly recommend that, especially since we are going through this Bhagavad Gita course, 18 days course, I would request each one of you to have this book. So in case any of you don't have this book, please reach out to me. I can send this book across to you. In case you are not in Chennai, you can also try to get this book in your local ISKCON center there. I know some of you are joining from Kolkata as well. So I don't mind sending it via courier to Kolkata. But in case if any of you want, please let me know on my number. I am going to pass on my mobile number through this chat box. So you can reach out to me on WhatsApp in case you want this book. So this book is called Bhagavad Gita as it is. In Hindi, they call it as Yatharu. Or in Tamil, Bhagavad Gita Unmai Uruvil. So as the Supreme Lord Krishna spoke this Bhagavad Gita, and so that is how Srila Prabhupada has written commentary as well. He has not made any changes or modifications, and the subject has come out as it is. So that's why we strongly recommend all the devotees to have this book. I know there are many editions of Bhagavad Gita available in the market, but as Srila Prabhupada himself is saying in the introduction to this Bhagavad Gita, that the very reason he wrote this Bhagavad Gita as it is was because in none of the previous Bhagavad Gita editions, the real purpose and the real essence of Bhagavad Gita has actually come out. In most of the cases, the author tried to concoct his views and brought out the Bhagavad Gita edition. Unfortunately, that is not how one is supposed to receive this knowledge. So this knowledge has to be received through the parampara system. So that is something the devotees who attended the earlier session of Gita Mahatmya could be able to resonate. The point of understanding this knowledge through a proper authentic sampradaya, authentic Guru Sishya Parampara, which should come down from the Supreme Lord Krishna himself. So that is how one is supposed to get this knowledge from. So otherwise, these days, especially with the evolution of the social media and YouTube and so many other forums, where pretty much anybody could go and speak about Bhagavad Gita, and people are there to watch. You see any bogus personality, he would even have a YouTube channel with millions of subscribers. So that doesn't mean that the knowledge that we receive from that person is authentic. In Kali Yuga, there are many people to cheat us. Unfortunately, we also want to be cheated. Right? So that's why we don't end up in such hands where people try to cheat us. Rather, we want to receive this knowledge from a bona fide authority. Yeah, so sure, Ravi Kumar and Palaniappan, I am sure I can help you. Please reach out to me on my mobile. I have mentioned this in this chat. I can definitely send across the Bhagavad Gita as it is book. Okay, so before we start this session, anyone or two volunteers who wants to talk about what they expect from this course? One or two hands, please. I don't want everybody to speak because that would then prolong the session. Yes, Ram Mohan Prabhu, you can speak. Any volunteers who wants to share what is your expectation from this course?
To understand Bhagavad Gita, Prabhuji, to attain knowledge about Bhagavad Gita.
Right. Sure. So definitely, we won't be able to understand Bhagavad Gita end to end completely in 18 days. For that matter, even for devotees who study Bhagavad Gita repeatedly many times, still each time you read Bhagavad Gita, one gets new realizations. So Prabhupada himself is saying in many of the occasions, he himself reads Bhagavad Gita, the very book that he himself wrote. Right? So Prabhupada says that every time I read Bhagavad Gita verses, I get new realizations. So nobody can say that I have perfected Bhagavad Gita or I have perfected the scriptures, but we are all trying to put our effort. And Krishna is seeing our sincere effort. All the 55 connections that we have right now, right? So this is a sincere effort. Spending weekends trying to understand Bhagavad Gita, trying to advance spiritually, Krishna sees our sincere effort. right? So thank you so much, Hemamalini Mataji. Okay, so let's begin. So I'm going to share a PowerPoint presentation in each week. So we are going to run through the PowerPoint presentation. Basically, we are trying to understand in essence what each chapter is about. And of course, I will touch upon some key aspects of each chapters. We may not be able to cover the entire slokas and the complete meaning of each chapters. So that would take a lot of time. Right? So we are only going to see the essence of each chapters. So today we will begin with the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Right? So just a short synopsis about Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, I see Ganga Gayatri Mataji saying that she wants to spread Krishna consciousness. It's very nice.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Okay, so just to give a synopsis of Bhagavad Gita, there are 700 slokas in Bhagavad Gita, around about 700 slokas. Mostly a conversation between the Supreme Lord Krishna and his dear devotee Arjuna. There are some verses, especially in the first chapter, where Dhritarashtra is speaking. In some verses, Sanjaya speaks. In few of the verses, Dhritarashtra's son, evil son, Duryodhana, he also speaks. So apart from that, it's mostly a conversation between Arjun and Supreme Lord Krishna. So Bhagavad Gita, though it was spoken 5,000 years back, it still is relevant even to the modern times today. Because Arjuna is actually representing all of us. Just like in television, we find famous personalities being interviewed. The interviewee usually asks questions on behalf of the audience. Right? So similarly, Arjuna was asking so many wonderful questions to the Supreme Lord Krishna, so that this wonderful Upanishad called the Gita Upanishads could come out. Right? So this Bhagavad Gita is a section within Mahabharata. Mahabharata is having nearly 1 lakh verses, but these 700 verses are so important that even till date, we are all speaking about Bhagavad Gita, wanting to know about Bhagavad Gita. Right? So this is an essence of all Vedic literature. You can say this is called Vedanta, the end of all the Vedas. When somebody understands Bhagavad Gita, it is assumed that he has understood all the Vedas in complete sense. Right. So with that note, let's begin the Bhagavad Gita chapter 1. So one of you can give me a concurrence if you can see my screen.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So this is not going to be fully monologue. I'm going to try to explain the chapters. I will take roughly around 45 minutes to 50 minutes, and then we can have 10 minutes of question answer session as well. Right. So even beyond these sessions, I am always reachable over my phone. For spiritual progress, we require some guidance. I won't say that I am a perfect soul, but whatever little that I understood from Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita through my spiritual master, I can definitely share with all of you, which would definitely be helpful in whatever way possible. So you can always reach out to me for any queries, both in terms of understanding Bhagavad Gita as well as practical application of Bhagavad Gita. Right? So with that note, we will begin. So this chapter, the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, is entitled Observing the Armies on the Battlefield of Kurukshetra. So often this first chapter is not viewed with so much of importance. Mainly because in this chapter there are no verses from the Supreme Lord Krishna. He doesn't speak so much, and it's all about how the battlefield was set and questions being asked by Arjuna. Right. So this may look like somewhat not so important chapter, but that is not the case. As the Gita Mahatmya says, each chapter of Bhagavad Gita are equally important. This Bhagavad Gita is nothing but the Supreme Lord Krishna himself. When we are reading Bhagavad Gita, be it first chapter or second chapter or 18th chapter, we are actually in touch with the Supreme Lord Krishna himself. Right? The Gita Mahatmya says how the Bhagavad Gita is nothing but the entire body of the Supreme Lord Krishna. He is equating different chapters of Bhagavad Gita to different limbs of the Lord. Right? So we need to have that mindset when we read each chapters of Bhagavad Gita. With that note, we will begin the chapter 1. Okay, so characters in Bhagavad Gita. Very interesting characters. For that matter, the entire Mahabharata, each one of the characters in Mahabharata, we can speak about them for hours. A lot of things for us to learn actually. See, why these epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata were written? Mainly because for us, the Kali Yuga products, understanding philosophy or understanding and studying Vedas, very difficult. So, especially in the scriptures, it is mentioned that in the age of Kali, people have disturbed mind, right? So they don't have a steady intelligence, and that thought process is not so elevated. It is not possible for them to grasp things. So that is why these pastimes of the Lord, be it Ramayana or Mahabharata, they are written in a story form. Actually, these are real incidents that happened in the previous yugas. Many of the modern day youth, the so-called youth, they term it as a myth. But actually, these are not mythology. They are real historical figures. The Dhritarashtra was there. The Supreme Lord Krishna was had advented in this material world. These are real facts. Right? So these pastimes, which are written in story form, are easy for us to understand, especially for people in this yuga, Kali Yuga. So when we look at the characters of Dhritarashtra, when we look at the character of Duryodhan, as against a devotee of the Lord like Arjuna or Bhima or Yudhishthira, so then we understand how somebody should lead his life. What are the mistakes that Dhritarashtra committed? What are the bad qualities of Duryodhana? So all these things, if we analyze and try to apply in our life, so we can easily able to lead a life, a devotional life, focused on serving the Supreme Lord Krishna. Right? So that's why these pastimes are given in the form of stories. Bhagavad Gita is like philosophical understanding of the entire Mahabharata. Right? So the characters that come in Bhagavad Gita, first and foremost, Dhritarashtra. So the name Dhritarashtra itself means somebody who is extremely attached to his kingdom. Rashtra means kingdom. Dhrita means holding so firmly. Right? So this personality, Dhritarashtra, he wanted to hold on to his kingdom, come what may. He was born blind, as we all know. But he was not just materially blind. Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, Dhritarashtra was spiritually blind as well. He did not know what the purpose of life is. He did not know that the essence of all scriptures is to surrender to the Supreme Lord Krishna. Though Krishna was standing in front of him, but still he was very much attached to his own kingdom, to his own kinsman. Why? Because he was spiritually blind. He had so many exalted personalities like Sanjaya, like Vidura, like Bhishma, like Dronacharya, who were constantly advising, giving advices to Dhritarashtra. But he did not want to listen to any of those advices. Why? Because he was strongly and materially attached to his own sons, 100 sons. So this is something which we need to understand clearly when we read through these verses of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is for all of us, right? Unlike Dhritarashtra, we should overcome our material attachments and have a clear goal in life. The goal in life is not just for material enjoyment. We are also so attached to our own family members, our own house, our own bank income, so on and so forth. Right? So we really need to ask this question to ourselves. Are we any different from Dhritarashtra? Right? So this is a self-introspection that we all need to do. How much of our attachment is on money as against the Supreme Lord Krishna? Right? So this is about Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya, a wonderful personality who actually had this divine vision because of his spiritual master Vyasadeva. Though he was sitting in the palace of Dhritarashtra, but he had that divine vision with which he was able to see the entire battlefield. So, because Dhritarashtra was blind, Sanjaya being his assistant, he was actually helping him out, trying to narrate what was happening in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So that is about Sanjaya. And Arjuna, we all know Arjuna was a great warrior known for his archery. Beyond that, why Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Arjuna? Because Arjuna was a devotee of Supreme Lord Krishna. In the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, I strongly recommend you all to read the introduction before probably next week. That will be very nice. So in the introduction, Prabhupada says why Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Arjuna and not to anybody else. There were millions of soldiers, warriors in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Why only to Arjuna? Because Arjuna had two qualifications. The first qualification was that Arjuna was a devotee of Supreme Lord Krishna. So if you want the Lord's attention, Lord's individual attention, then we need to become a devotee of him. So that is number one qualification. And what is the second qualification? Second qualification was that Arjuna had developed a friendly relationship with Krishna. It is not enough if we only become a devotee of Lord Krishna. We need to establish some relationship with Krishna. So that relationship could be established in different forms. You could have a parental relationship with Krishna. You could have a dasya or master servant relationship with Krishna. Like the gopis of Vrindavan, you could have a conjugal relation with Krishna. Or you could be a friend of Krishna. Right? In some form or other, we need to develop that relationship with Krishna. That is one of the qualification of Arjuna. And of course, the most important personality from Bhagavad Gita is Bhagavan, Supreme Lord Krishna himself. right? So he is the author of Bhagavad Gita. Gita means what? A song, right? So a song that is sung by the Supreme Lord or Bhagavan. So that is why it is called Bhagavad Gita. Right. So those were the characters of Bhagavad Gita. And just to give a highlight of the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, these are the different topics that are being discussed in the Bhagavad Gita first chapter. The first verse begins with an inquiry from Dhritarashtra to Sanjaya. We will have a look at that verse up next. And then subsequently, Duryodhana's fear and diplomacy. So that is something which we will see from verse number 2 until 11, where Duryodhana is inquiring Dronacharya about the different warriors, both in his side as well as on the side of Pandavas. So basically, that's an inquiry coming from Duryodhana. And then from verse number 12 to 19 of the first chapter, we could clearly see, even before the war began, there were definitive signs of victory for the Pandavas. What were those signs? So that we can see in the verses between 12 to 19. And then between 20 to 27, Arjuna is observing the entire army. He is requesting Krishna to take the chariot amidst the army of Kauravas. So he is having visual experience of the army. And then he starts to speak out. Between 28 and 46th verse, Arjuna is giving various reasons not to fight. Right? So what are those reasons? We will see shortly. So this is how the Bhagavad Gita begins. The famous verse, I'm sure most of you would be aware. Dhritarashtra uvacha dharmakshetre kurukshetre samaveta yutsavah mamakaha pandavaschaiva kimma kurvataya. So what is the inquiry of Dhritarashtra? Dhritarashtra is asking, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage of Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? So this verse has a lot of significance. Dhritarashtra, just to give a background, he was the father of the 100 sons called Kauravas. But he was also responsible for his brother's sons, the Pandavas. Right? Pandu was no more, and Dhritarashtra had the responsibility to take care of Pandu's sons, the Pandavas. But unfortunately, because of a strong attachment to his own sons, Dhritarashtra in this verse clearly is having that partiality between his own sons and the sons of Pandavas, sons of Pandu. How he is calling his own sons? My sons, which means he is strongly having that attachment towards his sons. And the sons of Pandus, which means the sons of Pandus, they are from a different family. I am not so much bothered about them. I want my Duryodhana to be victorious in this battlefield. So that is the clear sign of Dhritarashtra's mindset. And he is also mentioning Kurukshetra as Dharmakshetra. Why is it called Dharmakshetra? Because Kurukshetra was a place where Dharma will be established. In the earlier dynasty of the Kuru Vamsa, there was a king who actually had this boon that this Kurukshetra belonging to his kingdom, that was actually given a boon that in that place Dharma will be established, and whoever dies in that place, they will attain heavenly abode. They will reach the heavenly planets. So that was the boon which was given to this place. So that's why Kurukshetra is such a great place of pilgrimage. Even till day, many devotees, they go to Kurukshetra, to the battlefield, to the very place where the battle of Kurukshetra was fought. Right? So Dhritarashtra was quite curious to know what will happen, because my sons and sons of Pandu, they are fighting in this place, which is famous for establishing dharma. He knows that his sons are following adharma. So that's why he was so anxious to know what will be the outcome of this battle. Right? So that is something which comes evidently from Dhritarashtra's inquiry here. So what do we understand from this particular question of Dhritarashtra? He was highly doubtful about the outcome of this war. He was so anxious whether my sons will win or not. So when somebody is following dharma, then dharma will protect us. So that is the basic understanding of the Vedas. Only when somebody is practicing adharma, he should be doubtful about the outcome. Right? Even in the modern times, we find many people, most of the people, they don't follow dharma. Right? So they cheat others, they swindle the public money, especially the politicians, modern day politicians, and the modern day bureaucrats. Right? So that's why they cannot live peacefully. They will always be in anxiety because they are not following dharma. Right? So they are always in doubt whether I will be protected or not, whether my money will be protected, whether the income tax or the ED will raid my office. Right? So there is always such anxiety because you are not following the rules and regulations. For somebody who is following all the rules and regulations laid by the government, why should he fear? Right? So Dhritarashtra was very doubtful because he knows that their sons were not following dharma. He was completely fearful. Right? Why he was fearful? Because he was not on the dharma side and he was not following what Lord Krishna was saying. He was completely going against Krishna's words. So that's why he was completely fearful. Too much attachment is the cause of fear. When somebody is not very much attached to anything, there is nothing to fear. Right? So because of our own attachments, be it to our family members, to our wealth, to our bank balance. So because of all these attachments, only because of these attachments, we are always in anxiety. Right? And the other aspect is that, as I mentioned before, Dhritarashtra was completely partial. He was discriminating between his own sons to the sons of Pandu. So from that, we can understand that these demonic mentalities, persons with demonic mentalities like Dhritarashtra, Duryodhana, they often glorify themselves. They think that they are so much above everybody else. Right? So they don't consider Supreme Lord Krishna to be supreme. They think that they can win the war. Right? Because of such mentality, Dhritarashtra was having a sense of insecurity. The moment we start following the Supreme Lord Krishna, then there is no fear at all. For such a person, he is impartial to everything. He doesn't distinguish between his own family to other people whom he comes across. Right? In the Bhagavad Gita, various places, Krishna is talking about how a devotee is supposed to be equipoised, equal under all circumstances, under happiness, under distress. Right? Sama dukkha sukham dhiram So amritatvaya kalpate. So that's what Krishna is saying in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. But because you don't have that sense of following the Supreme Lord Krishna's instructions, you become partial and you become completely insecure. Right? Things that we can learn from this lesson. Right? So whenever we find ourselves in this situation where we are fearful of a scenario, or we actually we are doubtful about the outcome of our activities, then it's all clear sign of attachment. Okay, so then what happens? So this is the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. Dhritarashtra speaks that verse, which we saw in the previous slide. And subsequently, Duryodhana, he is approaching his guru, Dronacharya. And he is actually describing the armies. He is describing both about his own army as well as the army of the Pandavas. So he is approaching Dronacharya, who was his military teacher, and he is praising him because he wants his best performers, Dronacharya, Bhishmadev, all of them to be performing to their highest level, so that they are able to beat Arjuna and Bhima and so on. Right? So he is praising his teacher, and then he is speaking little about Pandava's army, and then he is boasting about his own army. He is saying as to how his army is so powerful. It is comprising of Bhishma Deva, Dronacharya, such stalwart warriors. Compared to that, those Pandavas, they are insignificant. We can easily defeat them. Right? So that is the mindset of Duryodhana. He is saying that his army was protected by Bhishma Deva. So there is nothing to fear. He is going to come out victorious. So that is the mentality of Duryodhana. But in that context, what happens? All the different warriors, beginning from the Supreme Lord Krishna. By the way, Krishna had taken a vow in this war that he will not take any weapon. Right? So that was the vow that Krishna took. Means he will not fight in this war. He will only be there as a chariot driver for Arjuna. Right? But still, the war began with Krishna blowing his conch, followed by Arjuna and so many other warriors. So what happens? This verse is saying, Sagosho Dardarashtranam Hridayani Vyadharayat Nabascha Prithivim Chaiva Tumulo Abhyanu Nadhayan. The blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. As soon as the Supreme Lord Krishna, Arjuna, and all the great personalities, they started blowing the conch, Duryodhana started to tremble. His heart got shattered. Though outwardly he was showing to the great warriors like Dronacharya, Bhishmadev that they are going to be victorious, but internally he pretty much knew that he is going to be defeated. Right? So that is coming out clearly from this verse. And then in that section, the second section, there are different descriptions of the various conch shells, and the signs of victory was clearly evident. What were the different signs of victory for the Pandavas? First and foremost, transcendental conch shell of Krishna. Krishna and Arjuna, the Supreme Lord and his devotee. Their conch shell was described as Divyam or transcendental. Transcendental means which is something beyond this material conception. right? So it was not an ordinary sound. That was the first sign of victory for the Pandavas. And secondly, Krishna's personal presence confirms victory. It is mentioned that wherever Krishna is there, victory is automatically present, right? And third reason mentioned in these verses is that in Arjuna's chariot, he had Hanuman's flag. Hanuman's flag also represents victory, because Hanuman was a dear devotee of the Supreme Lord Rama, and Krishna had requested Hanuman to be present in Arjuna's chariot. That was a different pastime, because of which Hanuman agreed and he actually sat on top of Arjuna's chariot. So that was one more reason given here as to why Pandavas will be victorious. And wherever Krishna is there, automatically Lakshmi Devi will always be there. So Lakshmi Devi represents goddess of fortune, which means Pandavas will have all fortune. So that was one more sign of victory for the Pandavas. And finally, Agni Deva was the one who gave the chariot to Arjuna. So this was a special chariot which Arjuna got from the Lord Agnidev. So that is one more reason why even before the war began, Pandavas were supposed to be victorious. Right? So these are different reasons given in the initial verses of Bhagavad Gita. Okay. So some description of the different conch shells. Krishna's conch shell was called Panchajanya, Arjuna's Devadatta, Yudhishthira's Ananta Vijaya, Bhima's was Poundra, Nakula, Sughosha, and Sahadeva had Mani Pushpaka. So these descriptions are given in the initial verses of first chapter. So as soon as Dhritarashtra is hearing all these descriptions from Sanjaya, his hearts were shattered. He clearly knew the outcome of the war, because the outcome of war is clearly visible, as we can see from this verse. This is the last verse of Bhagavad Gita. What does it say? Wherever Krishna is and wherever Krishna's devotee Partha is present, then what is guaranteed? What is guaranteed is all auspiciousness, victory, strength, and religiosity. Right? So all these are guaranteed. I request devotees to be on mute, please. Right? Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno Yatra Partho Dhanurdaraha Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutir Druvani Tir Matir Mama. Wherever Krishna is present and wherever his devotee is present, Partha or Arjuna, then there is going to be all opulence, victory, all strength, and of course, the religiosity is going to be established. Right? So this is the meaning of this verse. It was quite clearly coming out to Dhritarashtra. So the lesson for us is, when we have Krishna on our side, right? So then automatically all his associates will come and help us. So Arjuna had Krishna on his side, automatically Hanuman came, and Agnideva gave the wonderful chariot. Goddess of fortune Lakshmi Devi was present, right? So when we take up to Krishna consciousness, then automatically all other material prosperities or material necessities are fulfilled, right? So there is a common notion among people that when somebody practices Bhagavad Gita, then he will lose everything and he will probably become a renunciant or a sannyasi, right? So that is not something which we understand from Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna was not a renunciant. He was a proper Kshatriya, a householder. He wanted to perform his duty, right? And Krishna clearly gave that instruction. So there need not be any fear that when somebody reads Bhagavad Gita, then he will lose everything. No, that is absolutely wrong. Similarly, some people also say, I have heard this, that Bhagavad Gita is something which is spoken on the battlefield. So when you keep this book in your house, then your house will become like a battlefield. The family members, you will start fighting with them, right? So that is also not something which is correct, right? Bhagavad Gita is all auspicious. What we understand is, even on the battlefield, Krishna was actually speaking the highest philosophy, which is applicable for each one of us, right? So that is something which we need to understand. So clearly, when we have Krishna on our side, everything else are automatically included, right? So Lakshmi Devi, she doesn't leave Narayana. The problem is, in Kali Yuga especially, we tend to have Lakshmi on our side, right? We tend to want all the prosperities of Lakshmi Devi on our side, but we don't want Narayana, right? So that is what Prabhupada calls as Ravana's mentality. Ravana wanted Sita Devi, but he did not want Rama, right? So that is demonic mentality. So when we want to retain Lakshmi Devi, when we want to retain all opulences, then what we need to do, we need to worship the Supreme Lord, Narayana. Then automatically Lakshmi Devi is included, right? So that's why we worship Radha Krishna, Sitaram, and we also worship Lakshmi Narayan, right? We don't worship them separately. It is wrong to worship Krishna alone and leave Radharani, or you worship Radharani and leave Krishna. Either of these are not correct, right? So why Arjuna had all the opulences? Because he had the Supreme Lord on his side. Automatically Lakshmi Devi also came, and Agni Deva's chariot given to Arjuna, right? We saw earlier as well. So this is a famous Bengali verse: Rakhe Krishna Mare Ke, Mare Krishna Rakhe Ke. Which means what? When Krishna has decided to protect someone, who can kill that person or who can destroy that person? On the other hand, when Krishna decided to not protect a person or rather kill somebody, then who can protect? Right? Hiranyakasipu, the famous demon, he acquired all boons. He worshipped Lord Brahma. He literally became immortal. He had that boon that he could not be killed on the land, he could not be killed on the sea, he will not be killed in the daytime, not on the night time. So he made all sorts of calculations. He ensured that he is going to live forever. And he started torturing all the devatas. He literally made the Lord of Heaven, Indra, as a servant. He actually put Indra down on the carpet and he stamped on his body before getting on top of the Sinhasan. So he disrespected the Devatas like that. But eventually what happened? Supreme Lord Krishna decided to kill him. So he took the avatar of Narsingadev and intelligently, also satisfying all the boons given by Lord Brahma, he came in the form of half lion and half man and killed Hiranyakasipu. Right? So when Krishna decides to protect someone, nobody can harm that person. So Arjuna, superficially, if you see, his side was quite weak. He had very less army. as compared to the opponents. Opponents had the great warriors like Bhishma, Drona, Ashwatthama, all great personalities. But on his side, since he had the Supreme Lord Krishna, he was completely protected all through. Right? Something which we all need to learn actually. Our money or our family or our opulences are not going to help us. Rather, when we have Krishna on our side, then that gives us full protection. So that's why a devotee is actually called Abhaya. Abhaya means what? He doesn't have any fear. The founder Acharya of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada, his full name is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, which means what? Abhaya Charnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Abhay. Abhay means not fearing for anything. Why a devotee doesn't fear for anything? Because he has Krishna on his side. What is that to fear? Right. So then subsequently Arjuna, he is asking Krishna to draw the chariot to see the army. So here we can see Sanjay explaining this to Dhritarashtra, that Arjuna wanted Krishna to draw the chariot amidst the armies of both the parties, because he wanted to see who is standing against him, whom he is going to fight against. So we can clearly see how the Lord is so sweet. Krishna, another name of Krishna is Bhakta Vatsala, which means he is completely bound by his devotee, the devotion of his devotee. See what Krishna has done here. How many of us would consider driver as a career option? It's a menial job, right? Everybody wants to be a doctor, to be an engineer, to be a lawyer, right? So being a driver is not an blue collar job, right? So Krishna is acting as a driver for Arjun, and what all difficulty he had to face through that. It is mentioned that when Krishna was sitting in the driver's seat, Arjuna, in order to move the chariot, because you can imagine, in the battlefield, you literally had millions of people, and you can imagine how the noise level could be. Literally, you couldn't hear anything, right? So Arjuna, he could not say to Krishna, "Oh Krishna, please move on the left, take right." No, he couldn't say that. So what they agreed, Krishna said, "If you want to move the chariot on the left side, you tap on my left thigh, then I will move the chariot on the left side. And if you want to take right, then you tap on my right thigh." Can anyone imagine somebody hitting the Supreme Lord Krishna using his leg? That is what Krishna accepted here, being the chariot driver for Arjuna. Because Arjuna was a devotee, he was a friend of Krishna, he accepted that menial job, right? So when we also try to become a devotee like Arjuna, then mark this word, Krishna will do anything for us. He will go to any extent and give us protection. So that is something which we need to learn from this, right? So that is the sweet and transcendental nature of the Lord. So then Arjuna, he's actually seeing that I am seeing friends and relatives who are present before me. How can I fight against them? My whole body is literally trembling and mouth is drying up. Oh Krishna, don't ask me to fight. I cannot kill my own brothers. I cannot kill my guru. My grandfather is standing against me, Bhishmadeva. How can I kill all these great personalities? So he was completely affected by the loving affection. Unfortunately, the other end, Duryodhana was wanting to kill Arjuna. He had no loving relationship with Arjuna at all. But because Arjuna was a devotee of the Lord, automatically all the compassionate qualities are manifest in Arjuna. A devotee does not want to harm even his own enemy. So that is the quality of Arjuna being present here. So Arjuna is subsequently giving multiple reasons why he does not want to fight this battlefield. Initially, he gives the reason of compassion. Right? So how can I kill my friends and relatives? My guru, Dronacharya, and my grandfather, Bhishmadev, they all demand respect. How could I even think of hurting them? Right? And what enjoyment am I going to get by killing them? Right? So let's not fight this war at all. And he was subsequently saying, I am also very fearful of the sinful reactions, because I know that as per the Dharma Shastra, when we kill someone, he is going to incur sin. So here you are asking me to kill so many wonderful personalities. I cannot imagine how much of sin I will accumulate. I am not going to fight this war. And finally, Arjuna is saying, by killing these wonderful people, all their wives, they are going to become widow. And what will happen? The whole family tradition will be destroyed. Children who will be born in that family will become unruly. They will be misguided. So why we need to fight this war? So like this, Arjuna was giving all wrong reasons not to fight the war. So these are some of the things which we can see until verse number 43. So these are symptoms of stress. Arjuna was completely stressed. So we can clearly see from our own life, right, why Bhagavad Gita is very important for us. Bhagavad Gita was spoken to a person called Arjuna who was completely in a mood of stress. When we look at our own life, especially in the modern times, in the current times, we can see people from every walk of life. We all have so many challenges. Right? Even a small kid studying in the school also feels that there is complete pressure in the school. Right? I was just talking to my own kid who is studying third standard. She is saying that don't pressurize me. Now, what kind of words are kids using? A third standard kid is saying don't pressurize me. Right? And then we know how, especially when somebody reaches to the level of 10th grade or 12th grade, then there is heavy competition here. And we also find so many children in that age, because they are not able to withstand the pressure, they commit suicide. They take the extreme steps as well. Right? So dealing with stress, dealing with peer pressure, it is not so easy unless you have spiritual understanding. See, in the bottom line, we need to understand what is it that we are trying to achieve in life. Do we want to lead this life just like anybody whom we see on this road? You take birth, you grow up, you study in the school, you get graduated, you get into a job, you get married, you produce children, you get them married, you become granddad, and finally you leave some property for your children and you leave this world. This is a typical stereotype life of any grahastha in this material world. But that is not the intention of the scriptures. Material education, whatever we find in the schools, colleges, and so many other places, they can only lead us up to death. But spiritual education, the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita is something which starts from the point we are going to meet death, and it goes beyond death. The whole intention of Bhagavad Gita is for us to have a clear goal in life as to how we are going to face the last moment of life. We cannot be leading a life simply like animals, cats and dogs on the streets. Animals have no knowledge about the goal of life, right? If we are also leading our life like the animals, completely on a materialistic platform, so then we are actually losing out on wonderful opportunity. So that is the main essence of Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna is teaching us, when we are facing such challenging situations, when we are being faced up with stressful situation, what are we supposed to do? We cannot find a material solution to material problem. We need to approach spiritual authorities for handling our material problems. Spiritual platform is on a higher level as compared to the material platform. We cannot have material solution to a material platform. We need to go higher up and then find a solution. Right? Imagine there is fire all over. Right? So you get forest fires, especially in Amazon. What do? They all go in a helicopter, go above the Amazon forest, and then they sprinkle water all around. Right? Why can't they do standing on the same plane? Because the solution can only be given if you go above the problem. Similarly, for our material problems, be it stress, be it peer pressure, we cannot have a material solution. You cannot say that, okay, my kid is having a problem in school, let me change the school. That is only like transferring the burden from left hand to right hand. So that is not the permanent solution. The permanent solution is to give the child proper knowledge from Bhagavad Gita. When the child gets that proper knowledge from Bhagavad Gita, he'll be able to handle any stressful situation. Right? So these are symptoms of stress exhibited by Arjun. His limbs were quivering, mouths were drying up, the whole body was trembling. The Gandiva, the famous Gandiva bow, it was slipping from his hand. Skin was burning. He was not able to stand alone. He was forgetting himself. Right? So all these are typical situations that we all have undergone in life, isn't it? Various situations when we are faced with, say, a job loss, say a failed interview, right? Say a failed examination. How stressful we would have felt at that point of time. Right? So unfortunately, since we didn't have the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, we were not able to face that situation properly. Right? That's why Arjuna is approaching Krishna to gain that proper knowledge. What he is supposed to be doing, how he is supposed to be handling that situation. So Bhagavad Gita helps us to manage our stress. You cannot negate your problems. Problems are always going to be there. Stress will always be there. But it's all up to us as to how we are handling that situation. Right? So that knowledge is pretty much available in Bhagavad Gita. So, and the scriptures, they talk about different types of miseries. Arjuna had a misery in the form of having to fight against his own kinsmen. We may have different set of problems. Three typical problems are Adhyatmika, Adidevika, and Adibhautika. We discussed this in the Gita Mahatmya session as well as in the Discover Yourself session as well. So basically problems related to our own mind and body, problems which are inflicted by other living entities, and the problems caused by nature. So these four reasons that Arjuna is citing, reason of compassion, loss of enjoyment, fear of sinful reactions, destructions of family traditions. And Krishna is going to speak in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He is going to answer to each one of these statements from Arjuna. He is going to refute Arjuna in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And how he is going to do, we will see in the next session. But the main lesson for us, when we are faced up with a precarious situation, what decision am I supposed to be taking in life? Whether I am going to go this way or that way, right? So just like how we can get the help of a compass to show the direction, similarly, we need the Supreme Lord Krishna in the form of his divine transcendental knowledge from Bhagavad Gita. We need Bhagavad Gita for giving directions in our life. Just like how Arjuna got help from Krishna in the form of Bhagavad Gita, we all can as well take the help of Bhagavad Gita. So this Bhagavad Gita is not just for a person above 40 years. So this is a common notion in India. When you become old enough, then you can read Bhagavad Gita. No. In fact, in Srimad Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj is clearly saying, Kaumaram acharet pragyo. You have to take up to this process when you are in the age of 5. Kaumara means 5 years in Sanskrit. Right? So even a kid will be able to understand Bhagavad Gita. We find so many wonderful kids who can, in the schools, try to practice Bhagavad Gita verses. They memorize and they recite all the slokas. That is definitely good, but we should not stop at just that. What is more important is to teach them the lessons of Bhagavad Gita. You can teach the kids in story form as well. Right? So Bhagavad Gita is for kids, it's for the youth of this country, it's also for the elders. Right? So Arjuna is actually representing truly all of us. He was a Kshatriya fighter, he was a Grahastha family man, he had his family, wife, children, brothers, so on and so forth. Right? So truly he was representing all of us. So if we want to take advantage of Bhagavad Gita, then we need to follow in the footsteps of Arjuna, approach the supreme authority, spiritual authority, who can teach us Bhagavad Gita. And Srila Prabhupada is one such spiritual authority who has mercifully given us this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So today we began this journey. So we will continue this journey tomorrow as well, from beginning from the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is going to give us very important lessons in life. So hoping to meet you all in tomorrow's session as well. But before we end the session, I would like to take some questions. Any of you have any questions from the session today?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I have two questions. How long it took exactly for Bhagavan to recite this Bhagavad Gita in that war place? Each one tells different timings. And if you quote where exactly it is given also, it will be helpful, Prabhuji.
Right. So I don't have, exact reference, but what I heard from devotees is it took around 40 minutes for Krishna to narrate this Bhagavad Gita. Initially, when I heard, I was wondering how was it possible? Because even to recite these verses, to properly pronounce, it took me so much of time, right? But the beauty is Arjuna and Krishna, the speakers and the hearer of Bhagavad Gita, they are not ordinary personalities. right?
Yes.
Of course, one is the Supreme Lord himself, and Arjuna was the supreme devotee of the Lord.
Yeah.
So they were able to hear and
Grasp.
grasp the essence of the Supreme Lord in no time.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. Another question is, what is the significance of this Kurukshetra place apart from this war? Any other significance?
I was mentioning about how the place got so much of power, right? So one of the rulers in that kingdom, the earlier rulers in that kingdom, I forgot his name. So he actually got this boon from the devatas that this place is going to establish all the religious principles, and whoever fights and dies in this place, he will for certain reach heavenly abode. So that was the boon or the benediction that he got. Right. So this place has significance even before the Mahabharata war.
Yeah. Were they doing some yagam in that place? The sages?
Yeah, so he was actually performing yajna in that place, if I'm not wrong. So because of which the demigods, they were satisfied and they gave that benediction.
And one more question, Prabhuji. Who selected this place for war?
Who selected this place? Interesting question. I don't want to speculate. I will probably take reference and get back, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
And Gandhiva, who gave that to Arjuna, Prabhuji, and when it was given?
Sorry, Mataji.
Gandhiva.
Gandhiva. Okay. So apologies for my knowledge on Mahabharata. I am not so eloquent in Mahabharata. So many of the pastimes in Mahabharata, I haven't read through Mahabharata fully. I can definitely refer and come back to you, Mataji. I don't
Yes,
have that.
Prabhuji. If I hear from you, I think it will be more reliable because I can Google it. That is
Right.
not significant. That's why I'm asking
Right,
you.
right.
Thank you so
Definitely.
much.
I'll check and come back. Any other questions? Okay. Somebody is saying, okay, share the PPT for reading.
Guruji, if I remember correct, the answer for the Kandiba who was given is Varuna.
Okay.
Varuna is given to Arjuna. You can check up and advise me accordingly.
Definitely, I'll check. So share some important points and main theme of this chapter. Okay. So the main theme of this chapter is that, so basically we understand the mood of Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, how that even though you may possess so many good qualities, material qualities, but if you don't have Supreme Lord Krishna on your side, then you cannot overcome fear. You will always be in great anxiety. That's why we see famous personalities, the business people, in spite of acquiring um, so much of wealth, but still they are always in anxiety. Why? Because they don't have Krishna on their side. So that is the biggest learning for us, looking at the life of Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. And on the other hand, Arjuna, who was actually exhibiting material weaknesses. He was a devotee. Why he was exhibiting these weaknesses? Because it was Lord Krishna's plan. He wanted to give this wonderful knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So he put Arjuna in that situation, right? So if you look back, we all have such kind of material weaknesses. that Arjuna was exhibiting. Right. So when we want to overcome our material weaknesses and materially stressful situations, then we need to approach the Supreme Lord in the form of Bhagavad Gita. I think those are some of the valuable lessons or snippets from this first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, Kamalakshi, Shrimati Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Hare Krishna, Dandot Pranam Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Starting of your lecture, you said that Bhagavad Gita is the links of Supreme Personality. But in my knowledge, I heard that Bhagavatam, first starting from the first and second canto, is legs of Supreme Lord like that. But I didn't heard this from Bhagavad Gita is the links of God. Please explain this.
So this is mentioned in the Gita Mahatmya, Mataji. So Gita Mahatmya, the 18 chapters are equated to the different limbs of the Supreme Lord Krishna.
Please explain that extremities, the limbs for limbs means for the hands and legs, no, Prabhuji. So
Right.
please explain which chapters that is related to the limbs of his.
Right. So the 10 hands of the Supreme Lord, you remember that? Yeah. So it is mentioned in the Gita Mahatmya. We'll just get that. I don't want to tell a wrong answer. Just give me a second, Mataji.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a conversation between the Supreme Lord Vishnu and Lakshmi Devi in the Padma Purana. So that is how the Gita Mahatmya begins. So the Lord is saying
5 heads of 5 chapters, he said.
Yeah.
5 heads of 5 chapters.
Yeah.
10 arms are 10 chapters. That's what you had mentioned.
Right.
And the stomach is the 16th chapter.
Right. And the last two chapters are Lotus
Lord's feet is the 17th and the 18th chapter.
Yeah. Lotus.
That's what you mentioned when you were teaching Gita Mahatmya.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Dandot.
Dandot pranams. Any other questions? Okay, I am seeing some question in the chat box. Why are we not reading and benefiting from the Bhagavad Gita in spite of it being openly available? Our school education has been so miserable. Yes. Yeah. So basically, our school education is completely driven by materialistic advancement. So the basic conception of we are this body. So that is the reason why people in general, we are not interested in spiritual education. So if you look into the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we will see the basic education that Krishna is giving, that we are not this body, but we are something else. So we will see in the next chapter tomorrow. But that's the basic reason, Prabhu. School education emphasis is only given on material advancement. Yeah. So any other questions before we wind up? Okay. So as I mentioned, I'm always reachable on phone. You can reach out to me in case you need further clarifications. Thank you so much. And we will again meet up tomorrow.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Danat Pranam. Very nice session, Prabhu. Could you be sharing the PowerPoint presentation in the group?
I think I can. I will just check once, Mataji.
Sorry,
I
Prabhu,
think
I didn't hear you.
I think I should be able to share, but I'll check once with the coordinators and I'll come back.
Okay, sure, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Danat Pranam.
Thank you, Mataji. Okay, so thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna. Looking forward to see you all tomorrow again.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Pranam.
Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.